Pizza Hut is closing a massive amount of restaurants. The company is headquartered in Plano.
3 billion. That's how many pizzas Americans order every year, and here's what that number hides. The CDC confirms adults over 65 who get sick from contaminated food service are hospitalized at nearly twice the rate of younger adults. Not feel rough for a day, admitted, treated, and pizza, America's most delivered food, has one of the longest contamination windows in the restaurant industry.
An employee can be seen without gloves taking a bin of pizza dough inside the restaurant.
Tonight, the delivery chain that got a carcinogen finding in its sauce concentrate, and it never made American headlines. The birthday destination that private equity ran into bankruptcy while the animatronic band kept playing. 7 pizza chains to cross off your list, and 7 where the box actually means something. One thing before we start, some of these locations are run by excellent managers and crews who genuinely care. What you're about to see is how the corporate math pushes them, not a verdict on every individual store. Now let's go. Let's start with a chain that built an empire on 2 words: pizza, pizza, and then stopped delivering on either. Worst half, worst 7, Pizza Hut, the silent mass closure. 250 locations. That's how many Pizza Huts are scheduled to close in 2026 alone, on top of years of prior shutdowns. Yum Brands decided to call this a strategic review, which is investor deck language for considering selling the brand, which is investor deck language for we might walk away entirely. Maybe you remember the Red Roof, the personal pan pizza. Book it, where reading enough books earned you a free personal pan. Friday nights piling into the car and heading to the booth in the back that hadn't been cleaned since Carter was in office. That chain is disappearing, quietly and on purpose. Here's what franchisee financial pressure actually produces in the food. Customers describe cheese that barely melts anymore, sitting pale and slightly congealed on top of the sauce, not the bubbling layer you remember. Crust that's either burnt from a distracted line cook or doughy in the middle because no one had time to check. Sauce that tastes thinner than it used to, because it is. The consistent verdict from longtime customers who grew up on Pizza Hut and returned recently is the same. It tastes like a memory of itself. KFC is growing. Taco Bell is growing. Pizza Hut is the brand they are prepared to walk away from. When a company generating tens of billions in sales puts your childhood pizza on the disposal list, that is not a business problem. That is a verdict on what happens when a restaurant becomes a line item. You didn't do anything wrong, you just kept showing up. They stopped meeting you there. If you still go, favor recently remodeled locations. Fresh capital investment signals corporate attention. Avoid delivery-only ghost kitchen locations entirely. No dine-in means minimum oversight. Pizza Hut's story is mostly about money, a brand bleeding out on a corporate spreadsheet. The next chain decided to add a health chapter to the same story. Worst 6, Domino's, the turnaround that wasn't. Domino's CEO once went on national television and did something almost no food executive has ever done. He admitted their pizza was genuinely bad. The sauce tasted like ketchup. The crust tasted like cardboard. He said it on camera with a straight face. Then they reformulated, relaunched, ran the commercials, and America decided to give them another shot. That was the marketing story. Here's the product story that never made American headlines. Taiwan's Food and Drug Administration found ethylene oxide in Domino's pizza sauce concentrate imported from the United States. Ethylene oxide is a known human carcinogen. Taiwan maintains zero tolerance for it in food products. Domino's issued a statement calling it a first-time detection and pledging it would not recur. That's not a denial. That's a to-do list. Corporate makes the sauce itself. The same factory feeds over 20,000 stores worldwide. A carcinogen finding in that sauce is not a rogue franchisee problem. It is a Domino's problem. And then there's what happens after the sauce leaves the factory. Multi-stop delivery routes mean a pizza can sit sealed in a hot bag for 30 minutes or longer after leaving the oven. The crust stops crisping and starts steaming in its own moisture. The cheese remelts into a layer that clings and slides. By the time the bag opens at your door, what you are smelling is not fresh pizza. It is the inside of a humid, sealed container that has been cooking itself for half an hour. The most common one-word review of Domino's delivery from food critics and regular customers alike: soggy, not bad, not unsafe, just irrecoverably soggy in a way that carry-out never is. The 2009 confession was the marketing story. The 2024 carcinogen finding is the product story. Only one of those ran in a television ad. If you order Domino's, carry out only. Pick it up the moment it's ready and leftovers go straight to the fridge, not the counter. Domino's has a quality problem hidden in the supply chain. Papa John's has a quality problem hidden in plain sight in the slogan itself. Worst 5, Papa John's, the slogan and the label. Here is a marketing slogan that aged like cheese left in a delivery bag. Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. For nearly 20 years, that ran in every commercial. John Schnatter delivered it with complete conviction. Customers believed it. Why wouldn't they? He was the founder. He was the guy in the apron. He clearly cared. Here's what the ingredient label said during those exact same 20 years. High fructose corn syrup in the dough. While the slogan told you the ingredients were better than everyone else's, and you can actually taste it, or at least you could if you were paying attention, Papa John's crust has a faint, almost bread roll sweetness that real pizza dough doesn't have. Not overwhelming, just slightly persistently sweet in a way that feels wrong when you're eating something that's supposed to be savory. That's high fructose corn syrup doing what high fructose corn syrup does. Former customers who switched away and came back described it as the crust tastes more like a dinner roll than pizza bread. And food critics who have ranked major chain pizzas in blind tastings have placed Papa John's consistently in the middle of the pack, propped up by the garlic dipping sauce, not the pizza itself. They removed it in 2016, not because someone at corporate felt ashamed, because consumer pressure made removing it a marketable moment. Better ingredients got cleaned up, because cleaning it up was good for the campaign. The slogan diagnosed the problem. The marketing fixed the optics. You were the last one to find out. The sodium levels across Papa John's most popular items run significantly above what better ingredients implies, particularly for anyone managing blood pressure or heart medication. A 65-year-old who ordered on autopilot because the slogan said so never got the information they needed. After Schnatter's ouster following a widely covered racism controversy, the brand lost the one person who gave quality any narrative weight. The new spokespeople are mostly coupons. Look up the current ingredient label before you order. Compare sodium against competitors and treat it as an occasional choice, not the chain you trust on autopilot because the slogan said so. Papa John's at least put some thought into the marketing. The next chain skipped that entirely. The whole strategy is $5. Always ready. Don't ask questions. Worst for Little Caesars. The $5 gamble. For 30 years, Little Caesars sold America a simple promise. Walk in, grab a hot and ready, walk out in under a minute. 2 pizzas, 1 low price, always done. Always there. It worked. Little Caesars became a top 3 chain by store count on the strength of one idea. Cheapest pizza, always ready. Here's what always ready requires on the other side of the counter. To hit a $5 price point, the cheese cannot be premium mozzarella. It is a commodity grade blend, the cheapest product that clears the FDA's labeling standard. Real mozzarella stretches when you pull a slice. Commodity blend tears. It also develops a rubbery, slightly greasy film on the surface after sitting under a heat lamp. A skin that real cheese does not form. Food critics who have benchmarked hot and ready against other chains consistently land on the same word: flat. Flat cheese, flat crust, flat sauce. A pizza engineered to cost $5 that tastes like it cost $5. Here's what a local news crew caught on camera in 2025. A Little Caesars employee transporting raw dough through a parking lot, uncovered, loaded directly onto the floor of a car. The health department scored that location a 75. A food safety inspector who reviewed the footage told the outlet, "That's a textbook example of what we tell people never to do." That same year, a recall of 5.4 million pounds of mozzarella blocks destined for pizza parlors flagged potential metal contamination. A reminder of how fragile the commodity cheese pipeline actually is. A longtime Little Caesars regular posted after that footage circulated, "I've been grabbing hot and readies for years. Watching that, I felt genuinely stupid about it." Hard to argue with. If your location runs a tighter operation than the inspection reports suggest, drop it in the comments. I want to see the outliers. Little Caesars is owned by Eilich Holdings, the same private family empire that controls the Detroit Tigers and the Detroit Red Wings. Revenue across that holding company runs into the billions. They have the money to source better cheese. The business model doesn't incentivize it. The $5 pizza is a deal for someone, just not for you. If you go order a custom pie, not a hot and ready, pick it up the moment it's finished. Watch how the dough is handled before you walk out the door. If you've been counting, and you should be, 3 more chains are coming before we flip to the good news. How many of the 4 we've just covered do you still order from? Drop the number in the comments. And if this video is giving you information you didn't have 20 minutes ago, subscribe right now. Every chain we cover, we pay for ourselves. Nobody in this video has a deal with us, just the file, every time. Worst 3, Sbarro, the geography play. Sbarro has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy twice. Here's what makes that remarkable. Neither bankruptcy happened because customers rejected the pizza. The pizza was never the point. Before the first filing, they owed more than they owned by $16 million. They restructured. They came back. They filed again. Through both bankruptcies, airports and malls kept renewing the location contracts regardless. Here's why. Airports need food between the gate and the departure board. Sbarro will sign that lease. The pizza does not need to be good. It needs to be there, and it always is. You know the slice. It has been sitting in that open display case long enough that the cheese has separated from the sauce and congealed into a slightly orange, waxy layer. The edges of the crust have gone from crisp to leathery. The grease has pooled in the low corners of each triangle and cooled into a faint shimmer. It is not hot. It is not warm. It is somewhere in between, the temperature of a pizza that stopped caring an hour ago. The consensus from food writers who have benchmarked Sbarro is blunt. Edible, barely, and only in the context of having no other option, which of course is exactly the context Sbarro builds its entire business around. The slice you're eating at gate C14 does not represent Sbarro trying their best. It represents Sbarro knowing they don't have to. In chain pizza rankings, Sbarro rarely escapes the bottom tier. Reviewers describe it as the pizza equivalent of a vending machine that got too big for its packaging. The US store count has collapsed from hundreds of mall locations to a fraction of its peak. The airports didn't notice. If it is genuinely the only option, ask for a freshly made whole pie, not a display case slice, and eat it immediately. Do not carry it through the terminal. Sbarro exploits geography. The next chain exploits something more personal, the memory of a birthday party. Worst two, Chuck E. Cheese, the buried story. Here's the story the viral pizza video completely buried. You've heard the recycled slices claim. The idea that Chuck E. Cheese stitches mismatched pieces into a new pie and reserves them. It went everywhere, millions of views, and it sent the entire conversation in the wrong direction. A Chuck E. Cheese birthday party in Lexington, Kentucky ended with approximately 15 people ill, at least one hospitalized. Picture that for a second. The birthday cake still on the table. Kids' party hat still on. Someone's calling for a car to go to the hospital. Health authorities shut the location down. The closure is on file with the Lexington-Fayette County Health Department. The restaurant later passed a follow-up inspection. But a birthday party that ends with someone calling for a car to the hospital is a question that one past inspection doesn't answer. Here's where the pressure came from. Apollo Global Management, one of the largest private equity firms on Earth, with nearly $700 billion in assets under management, bought CEC Entertainment for approximately $1.3 billion, loaded it with debt, and spent years cutting costs to pay that debt back. CEC went bankrupt in 2020 and has since emerged under new owners. Apollo's direct control is over, but a company shaped by years of debt-driven cost-cutting doesn't flip its operational culture the moment the ownership papers change. The animatronic band kept playing through all of it. The inspection record is considerably less entertaining than the band. Neither, for what it's worth, is the pizza. Reviewers describe it almost universally as forgettable. A thin, slightly sweet crust with sauce that tastes more like canned tomato paste than anything made fresh. The kind of pizza that gets eaten because there are tokens left and everyone is still at the table. But it's the one with the government closure documents attached. If you have to take your grandkids, book the first party slot of the day, order a fresh whole pie instead of warming rack slices, and eat it while it's hot. Letting it sit while the kids burn tokens is exactly what the heat lamp was designed for. Chuck E. Cheese at least has the excuse of nostalgia. Number one has no such cover. It is just the food, the buffet, the shared tongs, and the structural risk, aimed directly at our audience. Worst one, Cici's Pizza, the buffet trap. Look at the tongs the next time you're at a buffet. Really look at them. The handles are sticky from the residue of everyone who grabbed them before you. There is dried sauce where there should not be sauce, and those tongs have been cycling between every pizza pan on the line, dipping into the meat lovers, then the veggie, then back to the cheese, transferring whatever was on each surface to the next. The pizza itself, even when fresh, is designed for volume rather than taste. Thin crust that goes soft within minutes under the lamp, sauce that's more sweet than acidic, cheese coverage that one regular described as enough to identify it as cheese, not enough to actually taste it. Multiple pizza varieties sitting under heat lamps for extended periods. Fresh pies rotating into the same warming display as pies that have been sitting for 20 minutes. CDC outbreak analyses repeatedly flag buffets and communal service lines as higher risk environments for older adults because every surface is shared and food sits longer in the bacterial danger zone. The $7.99 price point does not fund the labor required to turn pans fast enough to break that cycle. The pizza itself knows this. It just doesn't tell you. My neighbor's wife, 71 years old, retired teacher, not a dramatic person, used to take her grandkids to a Cici's near their house a few times a year. Not because she loved the pizza, because it was cheap and the kids could eat until they stopped moving. One afternoon she picked up something from that buffet that put her in bed for 4 days. Fever. Cramps bad enough enough that her daughter drove 2 hours to check on her. At 71, a bad buffet day is not a ruined afternoon. It is a medical situation. The CDC confirms older adults who contract salmonella or E. coli from a buffet setting face hospitalization at nearly twice the rate of younger adults. No other chain on this list combines a bottom-tier food quality consensus with that level of documented structural health risk aimed at exactly this age group. That is why Cici's is number 1 on the worst half. The $7.99 is not a deal. It is an assignment of risk, and you are the one it gets assigned to. If you go peak hours only when turnover is highest, watch for fresh pans coming straight from the kitchen and grab those. If the buffet looks picked over or the staff looks stretched thin, leave. 7 chains. 7 documented reasons to think before you open that box. But I do not want you walking away from this thinking, pizza is the enemy. I want you choosing it right. Because here is what I found on the other side of this research. Not every pizza chain has sold out. Let's flip the script. Best half, best 7, Papa Murphy's, the unchainable chain. Papa Murphy's solves nearly every problem we just spent 20 minutes documenting before it can happen. No delivery bag, no heat lamp, no driver running your order third on a 5-stop route. You pick it up raw, take it home, and bake it yourself. A pizza cannot sit in a warming rack that doesn't exist. Open the box when you get home. Cold, raw dough with a faint yeast tang, unmelted cheese still firm, tomato sauce that smells like tomato and nothing else. Nothing happened between the factory and your kitchen, because nothing was supposed to yet. When it comes out of your oven, customers consistently report the same thing. It tastes better than delivery pizza from chains that charge twice as much, because the crust actually crisped instead of steaming itself soft on the way to your door. Here's the catch they would rather not lead with. A 2023 CDC investigation linked Papa Murphy's raw cookie dough to at least 15 illnesses across 6 states. Most of those people had eaten the dough straight from the package uncooked. Papa Murphy's pulled the product. The chain that built its entire identity around "you do the baking" discovered that some customers interpreted that as optional. Bake to the recommended internal temperature. It's printed on the label. Never taste the raw dough. If you are over 60 or immunocompromised, treat the cookie dough product as completely off limits. Everything else on the menu is structurally the safest pizza you can order in America. The next chain took a different approach to quality, betting that what was not in the food mattered just as much as what was. Best 6. California Pizza Kitchen, the transparency bet. 2 lawyers walked into the pizza industry in 1985 and decided to do the one thing their competitors wouldn't: tell you what was not in the food. California Pizza Kitchen opened in Beverly Hills. Barbecue chicken, Thai peanut, artichoke and garlic. Here's what you notice when you eat at a chain that actually removed the artificial flavors and colors from its food. The aftertaste disappears. At most pizza chains, there is a faint chemical persistence after you swallow, a processed note that sits in the back of your throat. CPK customers who pay attention to it describe the difference as, you can actually taste the ingredients instead of tasting the product. Food critics who have reviewed the barbecue chicken pizza, California Pizza Kitchen's signature, consistently call it one of the best things in the fast casual pizza category because the ingredients in it taste like themselves. While Papa John's was still running better ingredients, better pizza against dough that contained high fructose corn syrup, California Pizza Kitchen made a documented public commitment in the mid-2000s, reported in the trade press, to remove artificial flavors and colors from its entire menu. Not a quietly updated website footnote. When your competitors are hiding what's in the box, telling the truth becomes a competitive advantage. California Pizza Kitchen went through a pandemic-era bankruptcy and restructuring. Most chains come out of Chapter 11 with cheaper sourcing and a press release about reimagining the brand. California Pizza Kitchen came out still listing what was not in the food. In casual dining in 2025, that qualifies as a radical act. Dine in at a full kitchen location. Airport and food court versions run a compressed menu. Shorter ingredient lists mean a cleaner product. Transparency is one way to hold the line. The next chain held it differently, by requiring the owner to actually show up. Best 5, Mellow Mushroom, the 50-year holdout. What does it take to run a pizza company for 50 years without selling out to private equity? According to Mellow Mushroom, it takes one contractual clause. The owner has to physically show up. 3 Georgia Tech students opened Mellow Mushroom in Atlanta in 1974. Stone-baked crust, whole milk mozzarella. 50 years later, still independently operated. Still growing, still running on the original conviction. Whole milk mozzarella is the sensory tell that separates Mellow Mushroom from most of its competitors. When you pull a slice, it pulls. Real whole milk mozzarella stretches in long, connected strings. Skim mozzarella, the cheaper version almost every chain has switched to, breaks. It melts flat and slides, without the fat content to stretch. When Mellow Mushroom brings a pie to your table and you lift the first slice, and the cheese pulls 3 inches before releasing, that is not a trick. That is 50 years of refusing to swap the ingredient. Food critics who cover regional pizza rank Mellow Mushroom's crust, specifically the stone-baked structure and the char pattern underneath, as one of the most consistently executed crusts in the fast casual category. Mellow Mushroom franchises, but the agreement requires owner-operators who are physically present in the restaurant every day. That requirement has held for 50 years. Private equity firms read that clause and immediately lose interest, which is, as it turns out, the entire point. Mellow Mushroom never had a leveraged buyout, never filed Chapter 11, never conducted a strategic review. It just kept requiring the owner to show up. Over 100 locations, primarily in the Southeast and college towns. Order the stone-baked classics. Mellow Mushroom proves the owner-operator model at regional scale. The next chain proves the Italian standard at national scale. Best for Marco's Pizza, the Italian standard. What is the fastest growing pizza chain in America right now? Not the one with the biggest ad spend, not the one with the most locations, the one founded by an Italian immigrant who refused to pretend that what passed for pizza in America was the real thing. Pasquale Pat Gianmarco grew up in Italy, came to America as a child, and opened the first Marco's in Toledo, Ohio in 1978. His premise, make pizza the way it was made where it came from, not the way a franchise consultant decided it should taste. Marco's uses a 48 to 72 hour dough proofing process. Fermentation over 2 to 3 days develops flavor compounds that same-day dough structurally cannot produce. It also builds a crust with a structural integrity that most American pizza chains have never achieved, one that has a slight tang, a chewy interior, and a bottom you can actually hear when you tap it. In blind tastings and chain pizza rankings, Marco's crust consistently places first or second. Reviewers call it the closest thing to an authentic Italian-American crust available at a national chain, which in this industry is not faint praise. It is a verdict. Marco's opened 70 new locations in 2024 and surpassed 1,200 total stores, with 85 new franchise agreements signed. While Pizza Hut was announcing mass closures and Yum Brands was putting the entire brand under strategic review, Marco's was growing. The pizza industry has a word for that kind of growth while your competitors are contracting. They call it embarrassing. For everyone else, stick to established locations over new franchises. Let someone else be the trial run while the new market finds its rhythm. The only place you fully control every variable is your own kitchen. But if you are going to order out, the next entry is built on a supply chain foundation that almost nothing else in this industry can match. Best 3. Mod Pizza, the supply chain bet. Scott and Ali Svensson did not come from the pizza business. They came from Starbucks. Before that, they had built Seattle Coffee Company in the United Kingdom and sold it to Starbucks. They had already spent years learning at a real operational level what it takes to maintain freshness across hundreds of locations. Supplier accountability, temperature monitoring through a supply chain, the difference between fresh as a word on a board and fresh as a measurable daily outcome. Then they applied all of that to pizza. You stand in front of the line and you see the dough pressed from a ball that was made today. You see the sauce ladled from a container that arrived cold. You see the cheese go on. You see the basil placed, actual leaves set on the sauce before the pizza goes in the oven, not dehydrated flakes shaken from a bag. After 30 minutes of this video wondering what is actually in the box, at Mod Pizza, you can just look. There is no box yet. The food is right in front of you. Customers who rank Mod against other build-your-own chains consistently cite one differentiator. The toppings taste like what they are because they are what they are. Fresh, sourced to a documented standard, handled by staff who processed them today. Watch the topping line. If you have allergies or are immunocompromised, ask staff to change gloves and use fresh utensils before building your order. Avoid raw toppings sitting open during a slow period. Mod Pizza makes food safe through visibility. The next entry makes food extraordinary through heat. Not advertising heat, physics heat. 1,000 degrees. Best 2. Grimaldi's. The 1,000 degree difference. There is a number that explains everything about why Grimaldi's taste the way it does. 1,000 degrees. Coal-fired ovens operate at temperatures approaching and exceeding 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Every chain in the first half of this video uses gas deck ovens, 500 to 700 degrees. At 1,000 degrees, a pizza bakes in 90 seconds or less, and you can smell it from half a block away when you approach a Grimaldi's location. Not the generic warm bread smell of most pizza places, but a faint smoke note underneath it, almost like a wood grill from the coal combustion that produced the heat. Inside, the bottom of the crust comes out with a char pattern. Dark, blistered spots from direct contact with the oven floor. That has a sound when you tap it, a cracker-sharp crunch that no gas oven can replicate. Food writers who rank New York-style pizza nationally place Grimaldi's in the top tier, not as a chain qualifier, just as a pizza qualifier. The coal oven is the reason every time. Most pizza chains would look at a 1,000-degree coal oven and see expensive, slow, regulatory nightmare impossible to scale. Grimaldi's looked at the same oven and thought, that's the product. That constraint limits growth. It also guarantees that every Grimaldi's location serves the same product because you cannot franchise the oven temperature away. A reader who grew up in Brooklyn and hadn't been back in 30 years wrote in, after visiting the Grimaldi's near her new home in Arizona. I actually got emotional, she said. It tasted exactly like I remembered. I didn't expect that from a chain. That is what a coal oven and an unchanged recipe produces. Eat it fresh inside the restaurant. Coal-fired pizza doesn't travel the way delivery is engineered to. Trim the darkest char if it concerns you. The char is evidence of the heat, not a mistake. And the #1 best pizza chain in America right now is the one that has been offered every exit and taken none of them. Best one, Lou Malnati's, the family that said no. Lou Malnati's opened in Lincolnwood, Illinois in 1971. 3 generations of the same family have run it since. Lou's widow Jean kept the doors open after he passed in 1978. Their sons Mark and Rick took over, and now their children are running it. 0 ownership changes. Here is what 50 years of refusing to cut the recipe actually produces in the food. The butter crust at Lou Malnati smells, when it comes out of the pan, less like a pizza and more like something a bakery made. A rich, faintly sweet browned butter smell that hits you before the server gets within 3 feet of your table. The deep dish slice has structural weight. When you lift it, it holds. The sausage is pressed in a solid layer directly against the crust, not scattered in crumbles. A technique that requires the specific supplier relationship the Malnati family has maintained for 50 years. Food critics who rank Chicago deep dish, not chain pizza, actual Chicago deep dish, regularly place Lou Malnati's in the top 3 alongside restaurants that have been open for generations. That is not a chain pizza compliment. That is just a compliment. The Malnati family has been offered buyouts. They keep saying no. Private equity firms have a word for Lou Malnati's. They call it an opportunity. The Malnati family calls it lunch. Food critics who rank Chicago deep dish, not chain pizza, actual Chicago deep dish, place Lou Malnati's regularly in the top 3 alongside restaurants that have been open for generations. That is not a chain pizza compliment. That is why it is #1 on this list. It is the only chain on either half of this video that gets evaluated as food, not as fast food. Lou Malnati's is what a food company looks like when the family that started it is still the one signing off on every ingredient. Treat it as an occasion. Deep dish is dense by design, so share a pie. Order the butter crust and the sausage. That is what they have protected for 50 years. I started this video with 3 billion pizzas. Here is what that number means in practice. 3 billion chances for something to go wrong between the oven and whoever's eating it. And a corporate infrastructure that, in too many cases, has decided the math works out fine if it goes wrong for you rather than for them. The number I want to leave you with is 7. 7 pizza chains where the people running them still believe that what goes in the box is the only thing that matters. Every time you open a box from one of those 7 and close your account with one of the worst, you are not just making a better decision for your health. You are sending the only signal this industry actually listens to. The wallet vote. Cast it deliberately. Best pizza you have ever had at a chain. And the worst. Drop both in the comments and name the city. I'll be reading. Hit subscribe. What's coming next makes this video look like a warm-up. Click the video on screen. It is the file on the next industry that thinks you're not paying attention. You are, and now they know it.